Hello, everyone. Just want to confirm everyone can hear me. Yes? Are you able to hear me? No? Okay, great. Perfect. Thank you. Awesome. Well, I see people trickling in, so welcome to today's session. We have a full house, over 100 people registered today, so excited to talk to all of you today. So my name is Samantha Perry. I'm going to be walking us through our webinar today, and we are going to be extending from last month's webinar, WeEstimate 201 Advanced Estimating Features. So if you were not on last month's webinar, we did go through WeEstimate 101, which was kind of WeEstimate for beginners, and we went into some kind of advanced features, or maybe features even if you've used WeEstimate a long time, you need a refresher on, like setting up some default my settings and how to search and find things more easily, how to kind of add a little bit of everything to jobs. And so we will do a deeper dive today into all of those items. We'll do a deeper dive into WeEstimate. So, focus on some more advanced features. Some of the objectives for today is utilizing WeSuite folders for multiple system type sales, manipulating gross margin in a number of different ways within the estimate, creating options on your proposals so that you'll be able to show one or more options to your customers, um, presenting different revisions and creating revisions within a job, as well as things like copying jobs, changing customer and contact info, passing jobs. So really do a much deeper dive. And this is also a great session just because we have so many of you. If you want to ask any questions or things, hey, I've always wondered if WeSuite can do this, or something that you forgot. So feel free to type some questions in the chat as well as we go along. So the first thing I want to talk about today is the folder structure. So I'm going to go ahead and just open a job that I already have. And we went into a little bit of this on the last call, but I'm going to do a bit of a deeper dive. And so I know everyone has a little bit different default settings in their system. Some of you create a folder structure every time you create a job. Others already have a number of folders sitting on your dashboard. But right here in the project view, I have two folders called Access and Video. And within these folders are any items. So I only have recurring revenue items for a placeholder for a fire inspection here. You can see I'm a $0 sale and I don't have anything going on, right? So if I add a camera and search that here, and I put one camera here into Access, you'll see that category now create under the Access Control folder, and now I have parts. And so we'll create a little subfolder within the folder for the different items that you have in it. The green outer folder is where you're going to drag and drop items into it. And you'll see right above that I'm on a folder level 1 right now, meaning I just have one layer of folders and I'm going to put stuff inside of them. Now, if I were to up this to a level 2, it's going to allow me to have an outer folder as kind of a category and then an inner folder where I'm actually going to add items to it. And it makes a lot more sense when you see it. So let's go ahead and do that. Now it is going to say, hey, warning, by doing this, it's going to reset your job. You're literally changing the fabric of the base of the job. So it's saying we are going to reset this and clear your job completely and start from scratch. Some people actually use this as a way to just clear their job completely and then toggle back to 1. So if you ever were wondering what's a way I could just clear this job completely, this will do that for you. But it's saying, are you sure you want to do that? Yes. And now everything on my job is going to go away and it's going to reset back to 0. And so I have no folders now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to call this, first floor. And you see it's still a yellow folder. I can't add anything into this. If I try to go and add a camera, it's just saying no. I have to add that second tier. And so I'm going to say Access Control System. And now it's green. That means I can add things to it. And so in the first floor, we're going to do an access and a video system. And on this outer folder again, so let's fold these up. And then on the outer folder where first floor is, the first layer, I'm going to do second floor. And I'm going to put an access and a video system in there too. And so now I have two outer folders, first floor and second floor, and within them, two subfolders for access and video. And so again, the subfolders is where you're going to add your items. Think of the first layer as just a way to break up and categorize the way you want to lay out your subfolders. And I'm not going to do a level 3 because it just takes a lot of time. But that would give you one more layer even if you wanted. So it could be building 1, first floor, second floor, third floor, and in those access and video. And so what that's going to look like on a job now, I'm just going to add one part into all of these folders. And actually the part I'm adding happens to also have associated parts, which I'll come back to in a second. But I'm just going to add the same part to all these folders just to save myself some time. And now all of these folders have a few parts of them. So if I go to the proposal now, this is probably where it's going to make the most sense when you see this. I'm going to see 4 folders for access and video, but they're going to have the first tier of the folder in the folder header so I can differentiate between this access control system and that access control system. And so what's nice is that if you want to break this up to a customer, you can still keep it pretty rolled up and, you know, not show them too much line item pricing and things, but down to the rest of your organization, they're going to see exactly where you're allocating labor and parts because it will put a dash between the folder names. So I have 4 folders. I have 2 access control systems, one on the first floor, one on the second floor. And I have 2 video systems, one on the first floor and one on the second floor. So you can see immediately how if I didn't just want to say video system for the whole building, I wanted to break it out between the different floors or the different buildings or break it up by door or by room. This would allow you to do that. Now I also have displaying the folder header at the top and quantity and description. You still have the same controls that you would normally have with these checkboxes. Sorry, I went to go here, but it does give you that deeper level of description for the folders. And so for some of you, I've seen 50 folder jobs because you're doing an airport or a jail and you need to break out literally every wing and floor. And so in order to do that, this folder structure can be really, really helpful. So I think it makes sense to play around with it a bit. It does take a little time to build. So if there's a way that you like it, you can go back and copy another job. Like I've had some users create a template called my second, my 2 folder system or my 3 folder system, and they use that as a copy paste so they don't have to build the hierarchy every time. But for those of you doing really, really big jobs, this can be very helpful. Next thing on the list here, I guess since we are talking copying jobs, I'll go straight over to that. If I created this and I like it and I want to use it again next time, if I come over to my dashboard now and we'll refresh it, I'm going to see here's the job we were just working on. And I can go ahead and right click that job and you're going to see a menu of options. If I hit copy, it's now copied and I can go ahead and paste it as a J2 into this bin. So bin 2302, 22302, and paste it. And it is going to ask me, do you want to keep the name of the job the same or change it? So let's do, video system second location or something like that. And it's also going to ask me, do you want to copy the same proposal or contracts that you made? I could say, yes, go ahead and copy that. Now, it won't copy it verbatim, right? Let's say it will in this case because I'm making a J2 in the Valley Hospital job. But if I were to have copied it from a J1 one here in Valley Hospital, but I want to now make this same job for Dobbs Ferry Hospital, it will change the customer, the site, the contact. Like those things won't copy. What's copying is the pages you had on, the scope of work you wrote, the check boxes that the way that you have them. So that's what's convenient about copying the documents. And if you said don't copy the documents, you'll have to create the proposal and contracts again for the new job. I'm going to go ahead and copy it. And so now when I do that, it will automatically close that up, and it should open the job for me. In this case, I already have this job open, so that's why it's not going to do that. But when I open this back up, now I have a J1 and an identical J2. Now I could have copied into a different bin. And so let's say I did a job, you know, last month for Brewster Schools. I did an inspection for them, and I want to do this same type of inspection for Valley Hospital. I can copy again, hit copy. I'm going to paste it into this bin instead. So you go to Jobs, right click, paste. It's going to give me the same screen, continue. And now I've created a J3 within this bin. And then the last option you have for copy, and see it does auto open as long as you don't have another job already open. So now I have a -3. And if I wanted to copy into a new bin, I would copy the job again, right click, copy. And in this case, I would paste it over my proposals. So it's going to create a new bin completely. Now, for those of you using WeOpportunity, I wouldn't do that. I would create the lead, RFQ it, move it to a bin, and then copy and paste your job, in which it'll make a J2, and then you'll just void out J1. You can just, you know, archive it, trash it, whatever you want to do there. But it will always create a second job for you. But if I paste it into my proposals, it's going to say, all right, do you want to copy the documents? Yes or no. Notice it didn't ask me for the same title, and that's because we're going to create a new bin now. I'm going to say yes on the documents. And it's going to pop the same screen as if I had clicked new project, but once I get to continue, it's going to start me in a job from what I copied. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. I can copy within the same bin, or I can copy to create a new bin by clicking over the My Proposals. Any questions so far, feel free to pop those in the chat as we go, but I will just continue down my action item list here. I will make note, if bins do need to have the same customer and site and billing information. So if you are doing like a chain where you're doing many locations, it kind of depends. Are you signing one agreement with a customer to say for $1 million, we're going to do these 50 McDonald's locations, and it has just a single site and billing for that, you know, original agreement? If you need to have individual quotes, creating J1 through J50 isn't going to work because you're going to need different site and billing addresses. So you will need to create different bins. But that's where copying and pasting to the different bins can be helpful, because as you create the bins, then you just copy the job and you don't have to recreate the job in the proposal every time. But I know everyone does that a little differently. Okay. A few other things in this right click I'll point out while I'm here. If you are allowed to pass this project to somebody, and sorry, this is at the project level. If I wanted to pass everything in this bin, I would go ahead and right click on the bin level and hit Pass Manager. And this is who I am allowed to pass to. So if you don't see someone's name here, it's just that you don't have the permissions to pass this bin to them. And this can be for varying reasons. Some people really only do this if a user has left the organization and now they're reassigning their projects. Some people will literally pass the bin back and forth between sales and engineering because they want to see that as like things I need to work on, rather than just assigning something to the in engineering status. Or a lot of people have put the use the approval module and approval processes for engineering, but there are some of you who literally pass jobs back and forth to each other. And so right click the bin, Pass Manager, and then this would allow you to pass. You cannot pass to yourself right now. That is something we are probably going to be working on as an enhancement feature. So if that comes up, what I've seen other people do as well is that if someone's left the organization or something's died, they'll make kind of a fake user to say kind of like open projects or lost projects, pass them there, and then log in as that user to divvy it to yourself or to divvy it out to someone else if you don't want to give ownership of it to someone just yet unless it comes back. Okay. Moving on, let's go back into our quote here for video, and let's talk of some of the enhanced features within the estimate itself. And I'll keep this on a level 2. I think that's okay. So one of the items we did talk about on the last session was we added a little bit of everything in this search and add quadrant here. We added parts, we added chargeable items, we added recurring items, inspection items, whatever these tabs you're allowed to see. Like you might be linked to an accounting system, you might be linked to PSA as well as an accounting system, or maybe you have a fixed price contract like a GSA schedule or something in which you would see 2 tabs for parts. Some of you probably only see 1 tab for parts. And if you have packages or use the inspection module, you'll see other tabs here. So we went through a lot of those basics. And then down below with the grids themselves, what you see, the order it's in, what you're allowed to edit or not, that is all controllable by your system admins. I believe seeing and editable is 100% system admin, but if you wanted to say, I want the vendor column up here, you can rearrange this and it will save the next time you log in. And so if there's a column you see here, like hide part comes up pretty often, or the position column, people don't necessarily know these are available columns that can be turned on at a system-wide level or at a user level. And you can, whether or not you're allowed to edit them or not is a permission. Same with like device location. This is a nice one. And a few versions ago, we added to hit enter. So you could say, 1 on the front door, hit enter, 1 on the back door, something like that, right? Before you kind of had to put a comma to delineate between the devices, and now hitting enter, it will just continue to grow down. What I wanted to dig into with these grids is a little more into these buttons here on the left-hand side. Each grid has its own set of buttons depending on whether you're working on parts or labor. And some of these are permission driven as well. But a question that comes up a lot, there's a part I don't have in the system, I want to add it quickly to the job. And so you can hit this blue one-time part button, and it will give you a form editor to fill in a part that you don't have in your system or your accounting system that you want to add to this job. So I can say, it's the Honeywell manufacturer part number 1234-AB, color camera, and this is, $100 cost. It will default mark up your margin if that's how you have it set in your system. I can add labor to the part right from here if I want. Say, yeah, bring in, 3 hours of installation. And I believe this will be based on quantity. So I had 3 for 1, but if I want 5 of them. And then you can say which folder do you want it in. I want 1 in this folder and 5 in this folder. When you go ahead and add that, it's going to say successful, and we'll keep this screen up in case you want to add another new part. If you don't, you just hit finish. And now within those folders, I go back to video now, you should see a row in purple. The purple part indicates that this is a one-time part that you manually added to the system, and it will come up and be flagged if you try to import this job into an accounting system, because that accounting system is going to say, I don't recognize that part. So that is why this is a feature that is available based on user rights. But it is very helpful because you don't want to stop billing and operations and have them add a part for a job that you might not even sell, right? So this is an easy way to add items here right onto your job. Now, one thing I think not everybody knows is if you had to add a lot of one-time parts, instead of adding each one individually, you can actually right-click on a folder and import an entire Excel of parts right onto a job. So if you're going to do a job for, a manufacturer you don't typically sell, and you don't have those parts as SKUs in your accounting system or your inventory, I can import Excel of parts. I'm just going to grab some random Excel that I have here. And it's telling me, okay, I'm going to take this Excel, but just as a reminder, I need at least manufacturer, model number, quantity, cost, and description in order to import it. So say okay. And then it's going to give you a utility to literally map the Excel rows that you have to the fields, to their matched field in the WeSuite database. So I'm going to ignore GP and tax. I'm going to say model number is model number. Cost is cost. I want to use unit cost. I can ignore cell. Let's say it's just going to take my margin. Description. And looks like I don't have manufacturer here, so I'm just going to make this the manufacturer, even though it's not right. And then I have quantity. Once I do this, it should all turn black, because now it has at least every column that I need. If it stays red, that means it's missing something I absolutely need. I can continue to map the rest of the columns, or I can ignore them. But now it's saying 9 out of 9 are ready to go. We'll hit import. And it's going to suck in all these parts onto that folder now. And so if I come back to this folder, I'm going to see 9 additional one-time parts. Okay, so really nice way to get a lot of new parts on a job at once. And so I do see a question, are these features only available in 6.11.51? No, everything I've shown you so far is available in a lot of the later, historical versions of WeSuite. The copying documents, I think, was like a 6.8 or 6.9 thing, but I don't think many of you are on any versions older than that. Okay, a few other buttons here I do want to talk about. We won't go through every single one, but I do want to point out you can hover over a lot of these and it will give you a little description of what it does. So box sale, right? I go and copy the job, or I have labor and recurring services and lots of things associated to my parts. By hitting box sale, it's going to strip out any labor and anything that's not your part pricing on the job, so that it will keep it as to just the equipment itself. RMR box sale is another good one. Often I speak with teams that maybe didn't sell a service or maintenance agreement on the original point of sale, but they want to try to upsell them that after the fact, or maybe they're taking over a system that they didn't necessarily sell or install themselves. By building that job out for the purpose of calculating out that maintenance, because a lot of you have a percentage of some aspect of the job for your service agreements. This will allow you to build that job in order to calculate the RMR, but then when you hit RMR box sale, I'm only selling the recurring services, and it's not going to sell the parts and labor on the job. Latest pricing, I went through this in the last call, probably one of the most important buttons. This will, by clicking this, it will refresh the pricing of my job. So I always tell teams that make a habit of, when you open a job, clicking this get latest pricing. It will pop a drop down for you and say, where do you want to pull latest pricing from? And so if you're using accounting, you'll want to do it there. If you're using WeSuite, you'll want to do it there. And if you are using, in addition to that, the ADI or PSA integrations, you will have to pull latest pricing from those, just because they're coming from different, from different data sets, different APIs. So, always good habit. When you search and add a part, it's real time. But if the part was on the job for some time, yesterday, or, I worked on this job 3 months ago, the cost is at whatever the cost was the day I added that part. You could remove the part and then re-add it, and it's going to update the price, but this is a much easier way to say refresh the price on this job. And I believe newer to 610 is I can hit latest pricing right on a folder. I could right click here and say pull the latest pricing on this folder rather than um, this button, big piece that I'm missing here. If I did it over here and you said, yep, pull from accounting, it's going to say, wait, you didn't select any rows. So I literally have to say, get me the latest pricing for this row down to this row. And I'm holding shift just like I would highlight rows on an Excel. And now it's highlighted all the rows. And I'm going to say pull latest pricing today from accounting. And it's going to say, great, I updated those 3 rows. So if I had said this was 100 and this was 100 and this was 100, and now I do that one more time just so you see it change, highlight them all, get latest pricing from accounting, it's going to update all these back to what it was, or it looks like it only highlighted that first row. So enhanced here is that I could say, just refresh this whole folder. Don't make me highlight all the rows within the folder. And then it'll just pull the latest price for everything, for the parts that is on that folder. If your labor rates have changed, if your recurring service prices have changed, it won't do those automatically. You will have to update those or delete it, re-add it, or start a new job, particularly for labor that's so deeply tied into the region and office level. If you're allowed to just say, well, we changed this from 95 an hour to 100 an hour, go ahead and change it. Otherwise, you might have to copy the parts and create a brand new job. So I did see a question come in. If I export a list of accounting parts to Excel and import it to a job, all the parts are purple. How do I get WeSuite to recognize they're actually accounting parts? So that's a very good question. I believe if you, someone in support could probably answer this a little better, but I'm almost positive that as long as the model manufacturer match, the accounting system will see that as a match, so it won't actually be flagged as a one-time part. There may be an extra script or something that we have to put in that import in the area of where you're importing to say, like, run this through this accounting query first, just so that if it finds a match, it will recognize it as a part. But you shouldn't have to map every individual part. So you might want to pose that as a question to someone on the support side, or I could always take it offline with them and see what the answer to that is. But yeah, I'm 99% sure you won't have to remap all of those. But if there is a character off or a dash or something, sometimes the ADI part number is the one that's in the accounting system and not the manufacturer part number, and so it doesn't see it as a match. Okay, perfect. All right, moving on. Again, some of these are just really helpful. Item, GP, and adjust. These are all at different GP amounts. If I say I'm going to highlight all these rows and I want them all to just be at a 40% margin, I click, use this up arrow, and it just changed all the margins to 40% on these parts. And these other items within this little section here are the same. If I want to discount the cost of all the parts in this folder, I would use this down arrow here. It will ask me the percent of discount off of either the current or original cost, and whether I want to just discount everything in the folder or only a specific manufacturer. So if you hit manufacturer, this drop down becomes active. If you say just give me a 5% discount on the whole folder, then manufacturer is not active. I see manufacturer a lot, right? Because you might be doing a really big job and you've negotiated a deeper discount of the cost with a certain manufacturer. So you can go ahead and do that easily with that button. Down from list is mostly used for people that are actually more wholesalers, where they're selling, where they have a list price and then they're marking that down to the person buying the item. So if you're going cost and up to your customer, you won't use this one. And then discount part sale, also not used super often, but if you just wanted to say show a discount to your customer to say, well, this part was really $100, but we're going to discount it, $10, and it'll show $90 on the quote. Now, some people don't like to do that because it will just show the new number. It doesn't show it as its own line item. So that's why some people would prefer to make that either like a fake part, or in most cases they'll use a chargeable item to just say take $100 off this job. But if you do want to discount the sell price rather than going row field by field here in the unit cell, you could say, give them a 5% discount on everything, and then people will either use a custom text item or write it into the scope of work, the sell price is reflective of a 5% discount.
Sam, we have a few more questions as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
let
so
me
when
take
I
a look.
update my pricing, some parts unit cost remains in the red. Is there a reason for this?
Good question. I'm not 100% sure if the cost is remaining red. It might have something to do. We have a feature called part timing, and so what it basically means is if I go into a part, and this is usually when someone's not hooked up to an accounting system. I know looking at your email, you are definitely hooked up to an accounting system, but it is a custom accounting system. I'll show you what I mean by the part pricing. Um, if a part cost is more, within 31 days old, it'll be green. If it goes to 32 and but under 60, it'll be yellow. And if it's over that, it will turn red. Now, you might have something like this from a visual, like, is this cost good or is it old? And so, but for a lot of people hooked to an accounting system, it's always going to be green because it's pulling, or at least it's green when you hit get latest pricing, but it can be a little deceiving if the last time someone updated that part in accounting is actually 2 years ago. WeSuite's saying, yeah, I pulled it from the accounting system today, so I think it's accurate, even though it might not necessarily be. So that might be why you're seeing that. I might ask your system admin specifically why you're seeing that in your system, but usually if it remains red, it's still seeing it as an older cost. And
then another question would be, if the nomenclature on the item doesn't match 100%, will it still look at the part number?
I'm fairly positive, yes, that as long as model number and manufacturer match, it will take it, because you do have the ability to change the description. I think that's what you mean by the nomenclature of the item. If the model number and manufacturer are not an exact match, then I think, to the earlier question, the accounting system won't see it as a matched part, but that description should not have to match. I'm pretty positive of that, but you might want to double check that with support. Okay, great. Filter zeros is also not used all the time, but if you did copy a job, or some people have packages called like my favorite parts, and they just say, yeah, one of these, two of these, four of those, you could say filter out the zero quantity items. Now, zero quantity items won't show on the proposals anyway, so even if it's in a job, if you go and print out a proposal, it won't show it as a line item there. But if you did want to filter out the zeros to not see them, or quickly remove them. Like, I don't know if we went through this, but if you have to select the row, right click, you can get the latest pricing on just this part. You can export the grid to Excel. You could just delete this one item. So often people will just delete out all the zeros after they've gone through their quick fix. We also added accounting details not too long ago. This is just a deeper dive into the fields within the accounting system. So if you're not using an accounting system, you won't see this. But if you wanted a deeper dive to this part and model specifically, and I right click that, it's giving me a little bit more information. Okay. The last place to manipulate GP, and most people are doing it up at the toolbar up top. We did go through this on the last one, so I won't go through every section of it, but you could see these are editable fields. If I wanted to just hit a 40% margin overall on the job, it's going to say, sure, how do you want to do that? And I have all these different choices. Evenly will tell you evenly distribute. Advanced will say, okay, where do you want it? And you'll literally say, put it on to labor and charge items. Don't put it on material. And it asks an extra question, how much should go towards labor? And you can change that. I have a default because in my settings, I set 75% to start. And then category literally says how much, where do you want me to put the delta? I'm just going to do even, and it will get to that number for me. Now, when I went and did this, it did pop for me right away. See here, it couldn't split pennies and, certain things. So it got as close as it could to that number for me. I could then go from here and say, let's just sell it for 17,800. And now I'm gonna have a pretty looking number, and I hit the margin that I wanted, so I'm good there. Or actually, maybe it was higher. Sorry, I might have misread that and it went down. But you might have noticed if I hit 20,000, it's starting me where I last was. But when I first started, it had advanced option 75% labor. You could set that in my settings. So in tools, my settings, and you go to estimate, you have a default GP and adjust. Every time I go to GP and adjust, start me at one of those choices. And so it had me on advanced with a default of 75% here. So if you're margin seeking or you just want to quickly hit a number, an overall margin for the job, you can do that. Do be aware if you start going really low and you're not paying attention to where you're taking it away from, and you said, well, don't put any of it on material, just start tearing down labor, it might bring you into the negative of your costs where you're making no margin, you're actually selling below cost. So just be careful with this and where you're putting everything to make sure that you have enough room to go up or down. Because, for example, evenly distribute will evenly distribute it based on what your distribution is on the job. If you're heavy parts and like 2 hours of labor and you hit even, it's going to put it on 98% parts and 2% labor. It's going to distribute it amongst what it has to pull away from. So advanced option may be better if you want to say, don't touch my labor, but I'm willing to go down on cost and chargeable items. Okay, so for the last few minutes here, I want to go into some other pretty important things that sometimes seem easy but need a little tutorial. So changing contact information. I think sometimes when you create a lead and push it to a bin, you don't always, it starts you on the estimate screen, and not everyone knows you can come back to the customer info screen. It skips that as step one because you've handled it in the new project screen. Sorry, let me close that. You handle it on the new project screen here, or you handle it in a WeOpportunity, so it just starts you right into the job. But often something changes. The person who's going to sign is different, or now you have the billing address or something like that. And so the contact screen with the two little icons here is where you're going to do that. And so they'll lay the land here. The center is what is the project view. Think of it just like the estimate here in the center. And I can make my changes and drag and drop over from the left, and then I can edit over on the right. So for example, Valley Hospital has 3 different billing addresses. If I wanted, they all happen to be the same because I duplicated it. But if I wanted to say, replace this one with that one, I'm going to say, here's my available billing addresses, and I'm going to literally drag and drop it and overwrite it with the one that I have. Contacts as well, I've got George, but George isn't the signer today, it's Richard. I'm going to drag and drop Richard and overwrite him over George. Now, if I had to change the information of Richard, I'm going to do that over here on the right and say, well, Richard is, the president, and change anything else I want to change. If it's from accounting, you can't do that. It'll be red, and the accounting system is the master. You will have to have you or someone else in the organization change it in the accounting system, and then you'll click refresh from accounting here. And if it doesn't exist at all, if I said, well, it's not Rich, George, or Samantha, there's a new person there now, you will add it in the top left quadrant. So I'm going to say, Tommy Rogers, and he's the CEO. Also, with the phone numbers and things, you do have to format it if you want it to look nice on the proposal. So I'd go ahead and do that. Some people, they have their document auto format, but not everybody does. So if you care about that, oops, that's the email. Then just format it. It's one and done, right? But now once you've added it, you would hit add here, pops down below, and now I could say, yep, Tommy's going to go over Richard. And if I come back to the contacts here, or let's clear that, now I have George and Tommy and Samantha are all available contacts for Valley Hospital. To change your customer, you're going to do it here. You're going to see it's the accounting customer, and I can hit change customer. And it's saying, are you sure you want to do that? It's going to change the customer for everything in the bin. And you're going to say, yeah. And you can go ahead and choose search another customer or just create a new customer. And if it's red, again, if you wanted to edit, let's say it's Valley Hospital, Inc., then you can go ahead and add that. But if it's an accounting customer, which in this case it is, I can't change the customer name. It has to be changed in the accounting system. And you'll know that if it's lit up in this green or orangish color. So the rest, I added a new contact, but adding new site and billing addresses are the same. You would just click these tabs up here and say, no, it's actually a new site. Fill it in, hit add, and then it'll go just down here at the bottom. And if I want to replace with a site or billing I already have, I'm going to use the bottom left quadrant and drag and drop into the center. And you do have other types of contacts. Some people are using backup, billing, on-site, sub, consultant, general contractor. These are just other types of contacts. So you can add those as well. If you want those things to show up on a proposal or a summary report, we will have to customize that. But it is available to you. Some people don't put it on a document that's customer facing. They just want to have it in the job for the engineers. So you can just do that right out of the box. Okay. Next, options and revisions is where I'm going to spend the rest of our time here. Anyone who's onboarded WeSuite in the last 5 or 6 years should automatically have this feature. And if you don't, we can work on it. It's pretty easy to set up for you. And so let me just show you as an example. Let's say doing a video and system on the second floor, we may or may not do. So I'm going to consider this an option. And so this whole top right quadrant here is the folder summary. So if, for example, if in a level 2, I have 2 different folder summaries because I have 2 folders within each of these. If you hit all estimate items, it's going to show you the outer folders. So in the folder summary, you have the ability to say whether something is an option or not, whether you want to exclude it or not, and you can have folder level job type, system type, phase, and position. So for some accounting systems, this is really important, right? If I'm doing access, video, intrusion, and fire alarm, I want one WeSuite job to create 4 projects in the accounting system. So I'm going to say this one's access, this one's video, and I'm going to set the system types as well. This is now going to tell the accounting system what's what. Phase isn't heavily used, but if you do have phases in your accounting system or in WeSuite, you could say what phase a folder is. And then position is if you wanted to reposition the folders and say, I want this one before that one, you're going to just change the number of the position and it'll move the folders around without having to rebuild it. Now, the main purpose here that most people use this for is to say, yep, I'm going to say this video system is optional. So this print on doc will now put a black question mark on the folder, and it's not included in the general outright sale. And so what that's going to do now is when I go to create my proposal, it's going to say, you've got an access system on the first floor and a video and access system on the second floor, but you have, and that's $4,000, and you have an optional video system on the first floor for $400 or something. So let's see what it looks like. So I have my first floor access, second floor access and video. That all comes out to $2,200. And then it automatically created this available options section for me in which it put that one folder. So I could have, let's say the whole second floor is an option. So I'm going to put that back to outright. And I'm going to say second floor access is optional and the second floor video is optional. Now they both have question marks on them, and we'll go and regenerate it again. And it's going to now say first floor is included in the job. And that's for, $2,900 with a 50% deposit. And you have two options. So you could have as many options as you want. You can also have, it's showing me my checkboxes exactly the same way, right? My equipment and show line item, don't show line item, show quantity, don't show quantity. We do a whole deep dive on proposals, I think, next month. But if you wanted to say, well, options, I want to show full line item on what's included in the job, but I only want to show quantity and extended on what's optional, we can even do that for you. You need a little bit of tweaking to the document logic. But it is a nice, easy way to say, well, I just want to show someone, here's an optional sprinkler and, video doorbell. And by printing on doc, it shows automatically as an option. Some people also tie this into their DocuSign process so that the customer can opt in or out of that option. And then if it's being included in the job, they want to go forward with it, flip it back to outright sale, and now that'll be considered the sold job ready to go into accounting. Or if you said they're not going to take it, some people just use exclude from sale, in which it makes the folder red. That doesn't delete it from the job, but it won't include it in the sale price. So if you wanted to keep it as it's an option I showed them, but they didn't take, you can do that. But most people just delete the folder. So that's an option as well. So definitely play around with options if you haven't already. A lot, really nice way to either, some people will make a folder and just say, well, options. And in that folder is, a bunch of different things, or people will have multiple optional folders. Really, really up to you on how you want to do that. All right. And then revisioning comes into this very easily as well. So let's say, I'm going to show them access and video as options, right? Print on doc, print on doc. And we're going to generate it one more time. And now let's say we're going to send it. Quote options is like the home base of your documents. If you're ever like, I'm lost somewhere over here, quote options, come back to home base here, and you'll be able to see your checkboxes and your revisions and send them and stuff like that. And so quote package number 1 in preparation, not sent yet. And when I created it and when I updated it, and I'm going to go ahead and just flag that I sent it to somebody. Really important that you do this. If you don't physically email it out or e-sign it and you're going to print it out and email it yourself or PDF it and email it yourself, you want to physically click the flag as sent, because otherwise it will stay in this preparation and it will never mark in the system that you have sent it. And so if you go and make another change and another change, it's just going to keep updating that package or that document. So packages really could be one or more documents. And so the solidified version of that quote you only have as a PDF that you've exported or a printout. By flagging it as sent, I now always have a read-only version of that job I can come back to. So customer got it and they said, yeah, I do want that video system, so let's include that. I don't want the access, so I'm going to just delete it. And I want 4 more cameras downstairs. All right, no problem. 4 more cameras. Now my price is different, and I'm going to go back to the document, and we're going to create a new quote package now that's going to be revision 2. Now, a lot of people are creating a J2, J3, J4 as options, but if you're inflating your forecast, when you go and look, it's going to look like you have 4 jobs all, you've $20,000 worth of projects when it was really 4 versions of a $5,000 sale. So by doing this, it's saying, okay, we're going to create a new quote package. We're going to name it the same, title the same. And a lot of people skip over this last question. Do you want this to be a copy of the last one? And this is actually new as of 6/11. It will stamp the revision number and update date. Before it just had the title. So I'm going to say, yep. And what it's copying is the document logic itself, the pages, the scope, the way your checkboxes were. The job value, of course, is different because you added 4 more cameras and deleted a folder. So I'm going to say continue. And now we've created revision number 2. And I can go ahead and change it on the fly again if I want, but otherwise I'm just going to send that one. And again, I could have emailed it or e-signed it. I'm just being sensitive of time here. We're going to go deeper into sending and documents and e-signing on our next month's webinar. But now I have revision 1 and revision 2. And let's just, for argument's sake, they're like, well, 4 more, 9 cameras. Now we're up to $9,000, and I'm going to make revision 3. And I'm not going to send it yet. I have 2 sent and 1 in preparation. So I can go back now, and I can resend any old versions. I could flag one of these as the winner. I could also go and just say, yeah, we're ready to win the job, and the one that they're going to win is version 1 or version 2. But a really nice feature is over here on the dashboard, when I refresh this, it is storing for me all the quote packages I've sent for this job. So I sent a $5,000 version, a $6,000 version, and I'm currently working on, in my workspace, a $9,000 version. And the customer said, you know what, scratch that. I don't want the 4 more cameras. Let's go back to just the 5. I can come to the revision I had sent already, right click it, and this option sync to workspace is saying overwrite what I'm working on with this version of the quote. So when I click that, it's going to say, are you sure? Because you're going to lose what you have in your active workspace. So that's why it's really important you flag your items as sent, even if you haven't sent them. Maybe you just want to store it as a version for yourself or something. Once you do that, you can't undo it. Okay. And now it's going to overwrite that 9,000 and change back to the way the job was when I sent the second revision. So yeah, cool. We're getting some thumbs up there. So this is a really nice feature. It's just sometimes not the first thing you're going to learn when you're learning all the other things that WeSuite can do. But flagging all of your revisions as sent are really important. So you could always go back and you don't get, hit with forgetting to hit, save as, right? Which is why you're using something like WeSuite and not an Excel or Word document. And so you can come back to any of those and sync those to the workspace. And then you just have one quote in the forecast, right? I see some people do what I did here, J1, J2, J3, and it's going to look like I have, 25,000, 30,000 in the funnel when I really just have one $6,000 job. So by using the revisions and syncing those back, or, saying, yeah, I sent 4 versions and we're going, the winner is number 3. Because once you've sent all of those and you do go to win the job, it's going to say, and here it needs job type and system type. It's going to say, okay, which version are you winning? The $5,000 version or the $6,000 version? I never sent the $9,000 version. That's why it's not assuming I'm going to win that one. So if you're ever, this is another thing. It's like, oh, I forgot to send it. You go and you flag it as sent, and then you can win it. Because you don't want to hit create document on the fly, because that you're going to lose your scope. You're going to lose. It's not actually creating a document for you. It's just saying, I'm not making a proposal, so just make some placeholder of a proposal. Just win this for this dollar amount, which is another feature that we've deactivated because most system admins don't want their teams to do that. Okay. So I would play around with that, and I know it can take some getting used to, but I think really, really helpful, and very clear what you've sent, the day you sent it. It can also trigger other things. So if you didn't know, when you flag a quote as sent, it could then trigger, It moves to an in negotiation phase. So you know when you run a report what's quotes I'm working on versus quotes literally out on the street right now. It could then also trigger the forecast. The probable close date will now automatically stamp X days out. You can set that in your system. It will automatically stamp a forecast or what a next action is. So just by sending something, it can then forecast out for everything else. You don't have to waste your time, doing all of those things. So it can be a big time saver. All right, so with that, I will open it up for some questions. If anyone has any burning WeEstimate questions, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, we'll go through the topics of the webinars in May and let y'all go.
You so much, Sam. That was a very productive session. So, thank you again for joining us today. We hope you've learned some good information to take back for yourselves and to share with your teams. And if you need to refer to this webinar again, it will be posted on our website by this time tomorrow on our website under Education, Training, and Webinars. Don't forget to mark your calendars for upcoming webinars. So the next webinars are admin training. We have DocuSign integration overview and features on May 13. And for May 20th, we're going to be discussing vSuite Document Editor, creating standout proposals. Take care and have a great day, everyone.